Okay, hello again, everybody. We're back again. We kind of on a '90s kick, so we're continuing with these like '90s sci-fi movies. And today we're talking about Cube. It's kind of cult horror movie from 1997. And yeah, Cube is a really kind of interesting film. Like Cube kind of reminds me of it's almost like a '90s version of Saw. Like very low budget, very kind of small scale, and kind of created a following of people who were just like really kind of into it, based on kind of this interesting premise. And so yeah, basically the idea is there's uh, this cube, this kind of prison that people are not really sure why it exists. We'll kind of get into that. There's some interesting theories kind of posited in the film. But these people are stuck there, and there's a lot of math and stuff. It's kind of another interesting angle. Is like there's an actual mathematical kind of layout to this cube prison, but there's a lot of stuff we don't know, and it's just like you got to figure out a way to get out, and there's a lot of booby traps set up all over the place. So it's kind of a dangerous place to be in. Yeah. So what'd you think about? This film, the premise, and like kind of the setup, like did it really work for you?
Yeah, I think it really worked for me. I really liked it. I feel like it's a type of movie that it gives you enough information, but not all of it. So it keeps you wondering, keeps you theorizing. Like people are still theorizing about what the purpose of this cube was, even after, it's been out for so long. I feel like it could be an allegory for a lot of different things, not just mental health, but also the prison system, or purgatory, hell. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like, because like, I just feel like it's a really good template for discussing a lot of different things. I feel like this movie isn't just one thing, which goes into the cube. Just isn't just one thing. It's kind of like a Rubik's cube itself, where it constantly shifts and moves and everything. And I like that about it. I thought it was really, really good.
It's really cool, and the budget for this film it seems like it was around $300,000, which is not a lot.
No, for a movie, it's not at all.
That's not a lot at all. So at the time, like this is a very, very indie kind of film.
Yeah, this is back when indie movies were still indie. Like I remember once reading that Phantom of the Opera, like the most recent like film adaptation of Phantom of the Opera by Joel Schumacher, was the most expensive indie film. I'm like, this has the power of Andrew Lloyd Webber behind it. It's not an indie film.
Yeah, it's not an indie film. You could kind of, because like I feel like there's a difference between being outside the studio system and then being an indie film.
Yeah,
because they're certainly. The majority of films are made outside of the studio system because now studios just make like 20 films, but the budget on average is probably like 100 million.
Yeah, I feel like an indie film is something like Cube, where it's like under $1 million. It's under a lot by what most studio films get, and it's mostly, I don't know, maybe generally unknown actors and an art house type of director, like, which I feel like is a phrase not many people even say or are anymore. Like experimental films and stuff like that, they still exist, but there's usually way more money behind them, I still feel like.
Yeah, and this is like, because making a movie like Cube is basically, okay, me and my friends, we're just gonna get some money together and we have an idea and that's it. That's it. And it's kind of crazy that this was basically someone's kind of idea on how to do a movie on the cheap, and it worked out to be really good, and we're now watching it and talking about it.
And it actually worked out really well.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about the plot. So this movie, it begins and this dude wakes up. His name is like Alderson. He's wearing like a jumpsuit, like if you're in a prison. He's got his name. He's inside this like metal room, and there are like 4 doors, and each door is like it's got like one of those bank vault kind of locks on it, like where you can kind of turn the thing and unlock it. And so then he goes from one room into another, and then one is kind of color-coded blue. And then he goes into this one that's color-coded red, and he crawls into it, and then he just, like, something happens, and we see him get, like, cut into pieces from this, like, kind of electrical wire, almost like the piano wire kind of stuff, but obviously even sharper. And then we see him get chopped into like they chopped up a piece of cheese, and then he dies. So
there's no coming back from that. So
no,
which the 90s really liked doing, like the 90s into like the early thousands really liked doing that to people in horror movies. They even did it something similar in Ghost Ship, like that opening scene. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but there's something very similar that happens, and it's kind of like, I don't know, art departments were like, oh, we can do this.
Yeah, we'll chop you up.
It.
Yeah.
Which it is like, now it's a little, we're a little desensitized to violence like that. But back then, I'm sure it was very like, ugh, like makes your skin crawl. It really does.
It does, yeah, because pretty much the guy gets caught up in some kind of like a net, and yeah, it's that. Ugh.
He's literally just pieces. He's reduced to pieces, and it's just so gross. It's so gross.
Yeah. It's really gross. It's very cool though. Like
it's a good setup because this isn't necessarily like a useless character. He sets up what our other characters don't know yet, which I think is really good.
Yeah. So, this one is like a minute tells us everything, right? Some kind of a prison. It's very dangerous. You can get killed. And, people don't know why. Like, he obviously didn't know why he was there. Because otherwise he wouldn't have gone into that room and gotten killed.
Yeah. It's his first day,
Yeah. And, he didn't play the game right. Let's put it that way.
No.
Cool. All right, so then this guy, Quentin, wakes up. And he's in this room, and there's this other guy just on the floor, and he's like, what? And so then he kind of moves around the room. He opens another door. There's this other woman who's, like, crawling in, and he kind of, like, picks her up and throws her in to the ground. And she's another prisoner. So she's, we see she's Holloway. And then there's someone screaming in another room, so then he finds her, and that's Levin. And so then, so basically, like 4 or 5 of them all come together very quickly, and they're all confused, right? They don't know why they're there. They don't know what's going on. So then, like, from the jump, there's like 5 of them. So there's Ren, this French guy, who's sort of like a prison escape expert, I guess. Holloway, who's like a doctor. Levin, who's kind of like a nerd. She's like the nerdy person in the bunch. She has like glasses. Worth, who's kind of like the silent guy, and then Quentin is like this very, I don't know, very kind of leader-like, authoritative person. So yeah, I guess what were your initial feelings about each one of these people that we saw from the jump?
Well, Worth struck me as like a fatalist kind of character, like, I'm gonna die anyway, so what's the point in trying? And for some reason I thought Levin was gonna have like some kind of psychological damage. I thought she was gonna have some kind of like history with that, and that's why she's there. But she's really just the smart one, basically. I liked Holloway's character a lot because she's very paranoid. She's like the most paranoid person. Like one of the most paranoid people. I thought Ren was going to be a little bit more important.
Yeah, they probably wanted you to think that, yeah.
Yeah, and there's something that's brought up later in the movie about Quentin. I don't know if I should mention it now, but I picked up on it fairly quickly, and I was like, there's something off about this.
Yeah, Quentin says up front that he's like, oh, I'm a cop. I'm here to help you, blah, blah, blah. We got to do this and that. People are looking for us.
Yeah, I didn't think that was true at all. I was like, he's not a cop. This guy isn't a cop. because I feel like a cop in that situation, because Holloway does mention, you haven't done anything except yell at us. And I was like, yeah, he literally hasn't done anything. He's using everybody else.
Yeah.
But I won't go into it too much right now, since we're only like at like the 15 minutes into the movie.
Yeah, but that's an astute observation, right? Because they kind of like, the other thing that's really interesting about this movie is it really kind of sets up, there's these personalities, right? Like, that's really kind of, I feel like, what we're watching here. Set up these people who have distinct kind of personalities and seeing if each one can suss out the other, right? Because that's really kind of the game here, is who's doing what, who's, how can you know what someone did before? Mm-hmm. What are the tells that can kind of lead you to trust someone or not trust someone?
Exactly. And I feel like by him saying, oh, I was a cop, oh, okay, he will obviously try and help us get out of here. You know what I mean? Like, what we thought about cops in the 90s and what we think about cops now isn't all that different, quite frankly, but you still look to them as like an authority figure who is supposed to want to help you. Yeah,
exactly. And there's always kind of the game afoot, right, of like trying to make people trust you,
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so, there's a lot of like surface level stuff where we're like, okay, who, there's always like there's like the traitor, right, kind of character, and there's always kind of like the hero character, and there's always kind of the resourceful one, and it's like, okay, which one of these people falls into these kind of archetypes? And for sure, it kind of, like, again, they're kind of setting up, oh, Quentin, he's like the leader, he's like the good guy. And, and then there's, again, like Holloway kind of, Worth just kind of comes off like, yeah, like you said, very fatalistic, but, you can maybe think, oh, maybe he's going to betray them.
Mm-hmm. But the thing is, like, when it's thrown in his face, like, okay, why don't you just lay down and die? He gets up, like, he wants to throw it in their face that, like, oh, I'll actually get up and help because I want to prove to you that you're wrong, kind of a thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, cool. It's really interesting. A lot set up very quickly. So then, so there's this guy Ren, who's this. We find out that he has a lot to do with, like, escaping prisons. He's like taking a shoe and then he throws it into this other room that triggers this trap that's like a flamethrower. And so basically he's trying to figure out like what rooms are safe or not. And yeah, there are very dangerous traps, like we saw from the opening scene. There's this kind of metal wiring that will chop you up into pieces. There's flamethrowers, and there could be other stuff we don't even know. And meanwhile they're kind of like trying to figure out, like, how did we get here? Quentin's like, does anyone remember how we got here? And Holloway's like, no, I was eating dinner, blah blah blah, this and that. So they don't really know. They just kind of disappeared. It's kind of crazy. So they move into the next room, and then Ren walks into this room, and then he gets killed with acid.
Yeah, right to the face.
He gets killed with some acid.
Mm-hmm. That was fast.
Yeah. So what'd you think about, like, so we've seen a lot of kind of VFX shots here, these kind of practical effects shots. What'd you think of this one where the guy gets melted with acid?
For the budget, I thought it actually looked really good. I feel like these are people behind the scenes who really care about the movie and want it to be as good as it can be, with what little they have. And I thought it actually looked really good.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was very cool. Because, like, his head, like, concaves in.
Everything else.
Yeah, they had to get, like, an actual body or whatever. Like a double for him. Yeah, it was cool. So, yeah, that's where some of the budget went. These shots were good.
Yeah. So, and again, it shows you what they're using their money for and how well they're using it.
Yeah, because every room is pretty much the same.
Yeah.
but that's good because like, in our minds, it still works. It's not like it doesn't work.
Exactly. We can pretend that they made a giant contraption that these actors are crawling through when really they're just changing like color panels.
Yeah, they're changing color panels on this one, like whatever it is. I forget. They give an exact measurement. It's like 12 by 12 by 12 or something like that. I forget. Yeah. So anyway, another thing too to talk about is like the sound design was really kind of interesting too. Like the sounds of these traps. Also, there's kind of just the sound of things kind of moving around in the
kind of like metal or mechanical gears shifting, which I really liked.
Kind of like an elevator, like when you hear an elevator kind of moving. So that was really cool too. Really well done. So yeah, so then they're like, okay, that's trapped. We can't go that way. We got to figure out what's going on, or else we're gonna die.
Yeah,
because this guy is the prison escape expert, and he got melted.
Yeah, he just got melted in the face.
In the face, yeah. Yeah. And so then Levin kind of makes this comment about, she's wearing glasses, and then the glasses are for reading, and she's like really good at math on a certain level, and there are these numbers in between each room, and so she kind of like has this theory that the rooms with prime numbers are not trapped, and they kind of test that out, and it turns out to be true. So that's a way that they can proceed without getting into trouble. And yeah, this is another kind of like part of the movie. It's like, okay, what's everyone's purpose for being here? Do they have a purpose for being here? Even if they do. But for the most part, each one of them actually does have a thing that they can do that is helpful for them potentially escaping. And yeah, so Levin's thing is that she's really good at math. And so she is able to kind of, I guess, decipher the code, as it were, of this like I guess the purpose of the cube, and like one of the ways of getting around the cube safely.
And she kind of becomes like the most important or valuable like member in this tiny little like group of prisoners, because now they all need to make sure that she doesn't get hurt or anything like that, because they know that they don't have the ability to decipher these numbers like she does, even if it takes her a little bit of time to do this, because she doesn't have paper. She has to like just like carve it into like the metal on the floor, so she doesn't even really have that to like help guide her. She has to like do it all in her head, so they really have to make sure that she doesn't get hurt.
Yeah, although I think getting the prime number of a number, or figuring out if a number is prime or not, it's probably not that hard.
I'm terrible at math, so I would die. I would die.
You would just die.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
I saw one of the user review on IMDb was, once again, this is a situation where if I needed to use math to live, I would just die.
Yeah. So I fair enough. I guess again, that's kind of, like you're saying, she became the most important person because everyone else is like, math bad. I know math, I die.
Pretty much.
Okay, so then they get like stuck in this situation where they kind of can't go back because they kind of get in the situation where the next place for them to get out is on the ceiling, and so they're kind of having to climb up this cube and go up, which is a little bit different from what they've been doing before. And then they open this door, and this guy literally just falls out of the door. Yeah, this poor guy, and he's like, "Oh, this room is green. I want to go back to the blue room." And he's like this kind of mentally handicapped guy, and his name's Kazan, and Holloway kind of looks after him. Yeah, and so then we kind of they all start theorizing, right? So it's like, okay, who built this cube? Was it built by the government? Was it built by I think someone says aliens, right?
Yeah.
Of course, it's aliens.
It's gotta be aliens.
Aliens, yeah. And someone's like, oh, it's just the military-industrial complex gone awry.
Or some rich guy, I think was also something that was there. It's just some sick rich guy.
Some sick rich guy, yeah. So what do you think? What would be your theory, like, as to who would have built this thing?
Some sick rich guy or aliens. Like, this is something I feel like Elon Musk would have, or Jeff Bezos would definitely be into this.
This feels like Jeff Bezos. He sends you there when when you're slacking off.
It's like, oh, you didn't meet your quota?
Yeah.
Go to the cube.
You didn't meet your quota, go to the cube.
Like, I definitely feel like it's in that realm of sick, twisted rich guy fantasy, which is a real thing. Or aliens, because only the aliens thing, because we don't see the outside of it. I mean, we do. It looks alien-like, and if math is a universal cosmic language that any being can understand, and that's how we would communicate with them, I feel like that would be a safe theory to have, a safe assumption. Also, they just randomly disappear. They have no memory of it. They don't know why they're there. Or it could be just some kind of prison experiment too, like testing out a new prison.
Yeah, what was that one? The Milgram experiment?
What's that? I don't know if I've heard.
Well, it's not exactly the same, but like, so in the 60s, they did all these experiments. So like one that was famous was take a bunch of students, put them in a fake prison, and have students be in charge of them.
Yeah, and the authority immediately went to their head. Like
immediately, yeah, they went crazy.
I think there was also one of like depriving, like I think it was in Russia. They did these experiments on inmates where like if you survive this experiment, you get to go free basically. And they stuck, it's kind of an urban legend now, but they basically stuck them underground and deprived them of light to see what the effects of depriving human beings of light would do to them. And whether it's an urban legend or not, it did not end well.
That's crazy. So they did a legit like to the death kind of thing with prisoners?
Pretty much.
Wow.
But again, that's what makes it part of like an urban legend. There is records that a study similar to it was done, but whether or not it was as extreme as it's made up to be within urban legend is up for debate. But it wouldn't surprise me. It really wouldn't.
Yeah, because probably the details got exaggerated, but still, when you say, okay, you guys are going to go in a hole for X amount of time, like, and you don't get to see light, holy shit.
Yep. And the thing is, like, prison systems have done things like that for a long time. Like in World War I, they'd give a deal to prisoners being like, especially in Great Britain, they'd be like, oh, go fight for, you know, the motherland, and your prison sentence will be expunged if you survive the war, basically.
Yeah, you survive the war, you get to leave Australia.
Exactly.
You know. Yeah. So, I mean, I kind of feel like, yeah, I think Aliens is a good one. It's really kind of interesting because they float all these kind of theories, and it's kind of like, were people really kind of going really conspiracy crazy at this time? Because it's like maybe, you know, it kind of reminds me of like an X-Files kind of thing or something.
Well, we had the internet at that point, and yeah. I'm sure one of the first things that was shared was some alien shit. So
yeah, oh yeah, I got abducted, and then the guy he put this thing in me, you know. Yeah, I'm sure that I got probed. I'm sure that was the internet. Yeah, I saw this thing. It came down, and he had these massive eyes, and it looked at me. Yeah. Yeah, this does feel a little kind of like an X-Files episode, like, you know, like the episode ends with the lady like someone running out of the cube, and then they run into like Mulder or something.
And they're like, "Oh, we've been trying to get it. We've tried to like find you for all this time," and then there's like a 10-minute wrap up of what the cube actually was. It definitely feels like something like that.
Yeah, right. And then in the end, it's like Scully's like, no, there's no cube. You know, it's just it
was all an illusion.
They were in Russia.
If you were in the cube, you were just in Russia, which actually might just be that bad.
It might be worse.
It might just be worse.
That would be such a great episode.
But here's my card, and if you want to talk about it sometime, like, I'm here to listen.
Oh my god. Yeah, I don't know. I just, because another thing that they float is, you know, maybe some government made this thing, and then it kind of went awry. Like, I was almost thinking it's sort of like the Death Star Like if they made the Death Star, and they were like, wait, this is stupid. Why are we building this thing? It's just going to blow up. It's easy to destroy. But then you built this thing. So what are you going to do with it?
Exactly. And they just left some people like, oh, they didn't make it to the transport on time. Oh, well.
Yeah. They didn't make it to the transport.
Sucks to suck.
Exactly. Yeah, I almost feel it's certainly humans could make it, I guess.
Or what if they all had worked for it?
Yeah, and then they got the mind wiped.
Yeah, they got their mind wiped, and for some reason, Worth is the only one who remembers Worth, because you have a doctor. It would make sense to have a doctor on staff because you're doing horrible things to people. Quentin could have been a security guard who went batshit crazy about all of the things he was seeing and knowing what he was doing. Ren could have been a designer of some kind. Worth he designed the outer shell. And who am I missing? Levin is a mathematician.
Yeah, she actually came up with the math of how to build it, basically.
I don't know where Zan would fit into all that. He's also good with numbers, as we find out later on. He's mentally handicapped, but he's not stupid. But maybe they all needed to end up there. Maybe anyone who works for them eventually ends up inside.
And that's that's actually, because when you think about it, that might be a good way to kind of cover your tracks, basically.
Your experiments can be the people who made it. Easy. Yeah. Like, it's easy. You don't have to kidnap actual people.
Because another thing that they talk about is, like, it could be very compartmentalized, like everyone's doing a very small kind of thing. And so then no one sees the big picture other than, well, like you said, Holloway is very, like, oh, it's them. They know the thing. This thing knows. It's like, who? Them. It's like, okay.
Yeah, and who knows what kind of horrible, like, Scar's memory erasure can, like, do to a person. Like, maybe it would make her really paranoid. Maybe it would make Levin really meek. Maybe it would make Worth really fatalist. Who knows?
Yeah.
Also, some of them are named after prisons, like Leavenworth, San Quentin. I don't know if the other names are actual prisons, but I did notice that. I was like, oh, that's clever.
Yeah, they're all basically named after some kind of a prison. And I mean, I'm not sure where some of them, like Kazan. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure where they're located or anything. But I mean, San Quentin and Leavenworth are pretty famous.
They're very famous. They're very famous, for sure. Yeah. So then Quentin. So then he goes into this other room. But it isn't Prime, and he almost gets caught up in the trap that we see the first guy get caught up in.
Yeah, that was pretty tense.
Yeah, and then he barely escapes, but he gets kind of injured. His like leg gets kind of sliced up.
Because that's the good thing about this movie is that there isn't one main character. It's an ensemble, so anybody could be next.
Yeah, anyone can just die. 100%, which is cool. Yeah, and so then, like, they get into this other room, and then Kazan's kind of, like, uncomfortable. He's, like, screaming in this room because it's red. It's like, I don't like it. I don't like the red room. And then, okay, so then we kind of get this reveal about Worth, like you were talking about, like, that he worked for whoever built this thing. He's like, oh, yeah, there's no way out of here. It's like, oh, how do you know that? Well, I designed the outer shell.
I kind of got paid to put you in here.
Yeah. And then, yeah, like I said, he talks about this theory, you know, okay, look, it's just a project gone bad, you know. It's just this big government thing. There's no why behind it. It's just they kind of, you know, it's almost like if you build a really big prison, you know, I almost feel like this is something you would put a metahuman in, basically. You build it, but then it's like, what are we going to do with it? Oh, we don't know. Okay.
We built it because we could, kind of a thing. It's like, you don't build it because you should do it. We're just building it because we can. You know what I mean? Like, why not?
Yeah. And then he kind of talks about, like, there's some kind of outlining math about it. So I think it was like 344 square feet. So it's like 14 by 14 by 14. And there's 26 cubed rooms, which is 17,576 rooms.
Fuck that.
Fuck that, yeah.
I'll just take a nap until they get sick of me laying there and be like, no, you actually have to get up and participate. Nope, not doing it. I refuse to participate.
Yeah. At that point, it's like, okay, what's the easiest way for me to die? Without having to eat myself.
Yeah, and that's another thing. They have no idea how long they've been in there. They don't know what time it is. Like, so I think Holloway mentions, well, they have to feed us at some point or something. And they're like, no, they don't. Not really. I mean, they're going to put you through this. Why would they take the time to feed you?
Yeah, this is like just, yeah, it's just a place you send someone to either make them go crazy, get them killed in a trap, or, you just slowly decay and that's it. But yeah, so then Levin kind of sees that there's these the numerical markings. So there's numerical markings between each room, and that those markings might be coordinates actually, and so that they may be able to find a way out by sort of tracking the coordinates to a place that leads to a bridge out. And that's another thing that Worth talked about is like, yeah, there is kind of a way out, but like if there's 17,000 rooms,
it's virtually pointless to try. Right. Which again brings in his fatalist personality. It's like, yeah, there's a way, but what's the point?
Exactly. We're in this thing that's so big and sort of daunting that there's no way we can actually scale it. But Worth is kind of like, or Levin is kind of like, okay, there is a way, and we can potentially do it. And so they're like, okay, let's try and do this thing. So then they come to this room where there's a trap. It's a blue room that has a trap that is sound activated. So this is a difficult one, right?
Yeah.
Because they have to go through it unless they double back and take more time. So they're going to go through and save time. So, again, and this is another thing with Quentin. Quentin's like, oh, we got to leave Kazan. We have to leave him. And Holloway's like, no, we can't do that. If you leave him, he's just gonna die. You're not gonna.
Yeah, the compassion in Quentin is either not there at all from the beginning, or very quickly he's ready to just lose all compassion whatsoever.
It's a little sociopathic, maybe.
A little murderous. A little bit.
A little bit. You're like, I don't know, like you seem to be kind of out for yourself and trying to manipulate people.
Yeah, I feel like this isn't the first square, safe room he's been put in before.
Yeah.
Minus a straitjacket.
Exactly, yeah. Okay, so then they're like, all right, so we can... So basically they figure out, okay, so as long as they're in there and they don't make any noise, they can get into the next room. And the doors won't activate the trap. So like even when you open a door and it makes a lot of noise, it's not going to activate the trap. So they all kind of do this thing, very dangerous, but they all climb down there one by one, get in this thing, and it works. They're all able to get in there. Even Kazan is able to like kind of keep himself quiet, and so then Quentin's climbing, and like right as he gets to the last point, Kazan kind of makes this noise, and then Quentin like has to like get into the room before he gets killed. And then he's like super mad or whatever. He's mad, bro. But that was a really cool scene, I thought.
Yeah,
very
it was smart. Very smart, very harrowing again, because you're like, oh, you can't make any noise, but this poor kid can't help but make noise when he's afraid. And I just love how like maternal Holloway is towards him. I get the feeling I don't know if they ever mentioned actually what kind of doctor she is, but I get the feeling this is not the first time she has had to help someone with a mental illness or a handicap. And I like that she immediately tries to like look after him and protect him. And I appreciate that about it.
Yeah, they're kind of, because like, again, like you said, she's the one really empathetic person.
Yeah.
Quentin is very self-serving, to almost, to a point that is self-destructive, as we'll find out later. The others are kind of, they're human, but they seem to kind of like just kind of go with the flow of what Quentin's saying.
Yeah.
And like you said, Holloway is very kind of, he's like, oh, we're all gonna die.
I like that Holloway, though, is paranoid because her paranoia is right.
Yes.
She's right to trust her gut in the end.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, you always gotta kind of trust your instincts on a certain level.
Oh yeah, especially because we all have intuition, we all have that gut feeling when something's not right, and we generally don't trust it more often than we should because we want to have faith in people. They want to have faith that okay, Quentin's a cop and he should be the leader in this scenario automatically because of that authority, without questioning, were you actually a cop? Or are you just saying you were a cop?
Yeah. And yeah, it's like, yeah, you're a cop. That means you're good, right?
No, it doesn't. If I was trapped in a cube with a cop, I would literally be like, yeah, we're going different ways, dude. Yeah. Sorry.
You go that way. I go the opposite way.
Sorry, 1 second.
Okay.
What time? Sorry. Like 11. 11? Yeah. It's okay. It's okay. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
But yeah, he's got chaotic energy.
Yeah, right. Like where would you put like all the people on the what are they, the D&D scale? Who's the chaotic good? Who's the chaotic neutral?
I think Zan is chaotic good because he can't help it. That's just who he is, and I just feel so bad for him. The way I wanted to kill Quentin long before anything else happened. I'm like, you stop fucking talking to him like that.
He talks down to him so much, and he just basically wants to get him killed. It's pretty bad
because he thinks Zan is the one who's going to get him killed, and it's not. He doesn't realize he's the one who's going to get them killed.
Yeah, totally. It's just, again, like I said, he's just a very self-serving guy. Like, it's all about himself. It's not about anything else. And so he sees no use for this person.
Yeah.
But he can't, because he can't think outside of himself. So anyway, so they've at this point they've gotten to like the edge of the cube. So then they create this rope for Holloway to get out because they're trying to see if they can get across to the wherever the hell out is, So they try to get her out there, and she kind of sees the edge of the cube. It's really cool. Kind of this is like one of these computer generated effects that they have. There's probably only a few in the movie. And yeah, it's really kind of interesting because you can see, like you're saying, it's like a Rubik's cube.
Mm-hmm.
But like there's these kind of shafts where like all the different panels move around, and they can move around on the outside. But you can't see what's beyond the cube, basically.
Yeah, and it goes too deep because then it gets dark. You can't see where it ends, where it begins, and it's a behemoth. It's huge.
Yeah. So she's trying to swing to the other side, but she kind of can't get that far, and then she kind of falls, and then so Quentin like grabs her arm, and he's looking at her, and then he just drops her, just lets her go, and just lets her die.
Yeah, they had some kind of confrontation earlier where she was just like, I don't think you're really who you say you are, and I think you are actually a control freak who is getting off on telling us what to do. And she's the one who points out, you haven't done anything. She's like, Levin is the one deciphering the numbers. I'm the one looking after Zan. Like, we're getting you through. And he picks up on that, and she becomes a liability of sorts.
Yeah, a liability for him.
And she sows the seeds of doubt within the rest of the group. So really, she accomplished quite a lot within helping them. Unfortunately, he's a dick and kills her for it.
He's a sociopath.
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
I think he was probably already a prisoner of some kind. I think he was probably a murderer or a serial killer. He keeps bringing up his family. I'm like, did you murder your family? Like, that's what I wonder. Like,
yeah, he says, oh, yeah. Yeah, like they have this discussion earlier, like, what's the reason for living? He's like, oh, I have a wife. I have 2 kids. But we're not together anymore. Oh, no, it was like 3 boys or something like that.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, we're not together. We're just separated. And I'm like,
yeah,
what? Death?
Yeah, I mean, she probably got separated in half.
Yeah, I genuinely think he probably went crazy, murdered his family. Maybe he was a cop and that's what drove him crazy. I mean, this is genuinely like what, like that is actually a real thing. Like I've been actually researching it for another project of like spousal abuse by police officers, and it's a real thing. Especially the biggest study was done in the 90s about it.
It's really cool. I remember seeing some. It's like 40%.
Yeah, 2 cases within the last year and a half have happened here in New Hampshire. There was one last year in July, and one recently just happened. Or sorry, not one in New Hampshire, one in Massachusetts, but at least in the New England area, 2 cases have already been profiled here in the New England area. So I feel like that's some kind of chip on his shoulder that's going on, and he had to get rid of the liability, which was Holloway.
Yeah, he's like, you are going to be eliminated, so I'm just going to drop you.
Exactly.
And then he says, "Oh, she slipped. Oh, so I just couldn't hold on to her.
She just slipped right out of my hands when I let her go."
I opened my hand and then I just saw her fall to her death. So sad. Yeah, but okay, so they don't know that he's evil. And so then later on, like they're kind of resting or whatever, and then Quentin like takes Levin into another room. He just goes on this weird, like incoherent, like rambling, while also hitting on her. It's like really like.
Yeah, again, I was just like, okay, gross, dude. Like, because we know she's a student, we don't know how old she is. Also, I really this actress was in Star Trek Deep Space Nine because it was bugging me. I'm like, where have I seen her before? I'm like, oh, she's Ezri Dax. But yeah, that was just creepy and weird, and it just again solidified everything I was already thinking, which was like, yeah, you're a piece of shit. And I think that's when she kind of figures out, you killed Holloway. Also, he has a line earlier before they rest where like, an hour is as long as I say it is. I'm like, fuck you.
I know. It's like, dude, like that almost kind of makes me feel like he was a cop, because it's like all this very asshole-ish authoritarian behavior.
Yeah, and now he's treating them like they're his prisoners in someone else's prison. It's like, maybe he wasn't a cop. Maybe he was actually a security guard. I keep going back to like the security guard or cop thing. Like I'm flip-flopping, but
that's another thing
about this movie is that you can theorize as much as you want.
There's like, the people who you think that they're a cop, those are even worse, but they're a rent-a-cop. And they have these delusions of like, oh yeah, well I protect the mall, and so you got to do what I say.
Yeah.
And they're like tasing kids at the mall. It's like, dude, you're a freaking rent-a-cop.
Not even. You're just a douche who failed being a cop, probably. Yeah. Which, how do you do that? Because they literally let anyone be a cop.
I know.
I'm going
especially people like Quentin.
Yeah, especially people like character. Archetypal abuse of power character.
Yeah. That's basically what they look for.
Yeah.
So then Worth attacks Quentin, and they're fighting, and they get to the scene where he's just like beating the shit out of Worth, just like relentlessly. He's a stone cold psycho, right? He's just straight up psychotic, just out of his freaking mind. And now basically they know, okay, you're locked in with a psycho. Yeah. Right? That's the new problem.
Yeah.
That this dude is totally out of his mind. Okay, so then they end up back in the room where they started, and some more fatalism now. They're like, okay, because like they fall into this room, right? So like he throws Worth into this room, Quentin does, and he falls on the body of Ren that's still melted.
I liked that twist. I was like, oh, damn.
Yeah, so then they're like, shit, we're really fucked. Like we've basically gone in a circle. But then, so again, we've been hearing these kind of like I said, it sort of sounds like an elevator moving around.
Yeah, more like not like the nice fancy elevator that's in the front of the building. It's like what do they call it? It's
this is something for laundry.
Yeah, like the laundry elevator in the back that's really old and hasn't been replaced in like 90 years, and that could snap at any moment. It sounds like that, which is scary. Service elevator.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like a service elevator. It's right. It's like hella fast.
Yes.
So Levin figures out, okay, so the positions keep changing, but it basically has a number of permutations of changes that it will have. So basically, over the course of certain permutations, you're going to end up at certain locations, and because of that, you can be in one place that's going to lead you to the bridge out, but you got to wait for the right location and the right permutation. So they figure, okay, there is a way out now. This is it. So we just have to do some math, basically. The other thing too is, so like they, Levin's like, okay, so that whole thing about the prime number thing, that was kind of off. It's like, I forget exactly what she said, but it's like rooms don't have traps if they are numbers that are identified by a prime, and she can't factor them. But Kazan can do it, just like he can just do it off the top of his head.
Yep.
And so that makes him really, really useful now. Now that he's like,
oh yeah, suddenly Quentin doesn't want to kill him. Interesting.
Well, again, Quentin wants to just use people, right?
Yeah.
You're a tool, and then once I'm done with you, I kill you.
Yeah, which is what psychopaths do.
He's a fucking psycho, yeah, straight up. Okay, so now they have a plan. So they're kind of figuring their way through. Kazan is helping them do the math to know what's safe or what's not. And so they're moving. And so then Worth tries to kind of catch Quentin when he's vulnerable.
Which I'm so glad he tried, because he's like, oh, well, he's being nice to us now, but as soon as he gets pissed off again, he's going to try and kill me. Also, I like that he's not letting it go, that he nearly just beat him to death. He's like, yeah, I'm not letting that go. I'm a fatalist. I'm going to lay down and die someday. But that was a dick move, bro. And he tries trapping him in the door. I was like,
yeah, he tries to trap him in the door. And then they're able to kind of trick him and get him stuck in that blue room again, the sound activated one. So then they leave him behind. So they're moving on. But then the rooms move, and Kazan gets isolated from Worth and Levin.
Mm-hmm.
And then so Worth has to double back to get Kazan. He's able to do that. They get back together. So then they get to the room where the bridge is. And this thing opens up, and then so they basically see the light, and they're like, this is kind of close to it. This is where you can get out. And then Worth is just like, I have nothing to live for out there. I forget. Levin has she says something, but then she gets stabbed in the back, literally, by Quentin, this piece of shit.
I was so mad. I was like, you son of a bitch, can't you just die already?
Yeah, so then they're fighting. They're fighting. Quentin kind of tries to stop Kazan from leaving, but then Worth kind of traps Quentin, and then he gets trapped in between these two kind of doors while they're moving. And so then that kills Quentin. We see a blood smear
Yeah,
across.
I loved that. I was like, eh.
Yeah. A fitting way to die for him. So yeah, then Kazan's the only one left alive, and then he's gotten to the bridge, and he crosses the bridge into the light, and he gets out and he leaves.
I was so happy about that. I was so utterly relieved when Zan got out, because if anyone did deserve to be there, it was him.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about what Levin or Holloway did. Maybe, actually, a good chip on Holloway's shoulder was that she accidentally killed a patient or something. Again, this movie just makes you theorize and shit.
Because of some paranoia or something?
Some paranoia, or maybe that's why she is paranoid, because she doesn't want to hurt someone again. Because they all Quentin's there, obviously, because he's a psychopath. Genuine psychopath through and through. I don't know what Levin could have done. She even can't think of anything small. Worth thinks he knows why he's there, because he helped build the outer shell. So maybe I deserve to be here because this is what my work is doing to people. But Zan is literally as innocent as a person could be. You know what I mean? And if anyone deserved to leave, it was him.
Yeah, totally. It's really interesting. So, I guess, what's what do you think Levin did to get there?
Maybe she cheated on a test. Maybe she slept with a professor. Maybe she tripped a girl in ballet class and she fell down or something. Who knows what constitutes as big or small to the people who's putting them in there. You know what I mean? There's this one of the things I love about the show The Good Place is that it breaks down the tiniest things we do that make us be either a good person or a bad person, like buying tomatoes from the wrong store because they're picked by migrant workers who are paid pennies, or when you could have bought them somewhere else where they were grown differently. And it's those tiny little things that end up building up to make you lose points to going to the good place, which is basically heaven. And it's something very similar to this. Who knows what they did that makes it good or bad to whoever, again, decides that they get put in this prison.
Yeah,
maybe
for sure.
Maybe she was a shoplifter.
Yeah. Because we don't know. We can just theorize. We can kind of like look at things and say, okay, maybe it was this, maybe it was that. It seems pretty clear like Quentin is someone who is probably in prison for a reason, for like doing mass murder or something like that, right? Just killing a bunch of people, lying about, like you said, maybe he just killed his whole family.
Because he's normal up to a certain point. He's not like that when we first meet him. So clearly he can fake it. He can fake motivating people to do what he needs them to do. Because in the beginning, he's like, oh, don't you have anything to live for? Or don't worry, Levin, we're going to get out of here. Just relax or whatever. We all just need to stay calm. But in the inside, he's like, I need to get the hell out of here. And it's only a matter of time before that real face of a person shows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, interesting stuff. Like, for sure, it almost kind of reminds me of like Memento, just thinking about the different Memento theories, about the character. Yeah, so what are the things you really liked about the film? What things really worked for you?
I really liked the characters on a whole. I thought they were pretty realistic, fairly relatable, very different personalities all shoved together. I liked the design of everything, like very simple. I liked one of the things that it could have worked as a play, which is something that I was noticing about. It's like it's a very simplistic design, aesthetic, if you will. Like from the costumes to the actual cubes rooms that they're in. I feel like it definitely could work as a play, which I think would be really interesting. I can't think of too many sci-fi plays that are out there. And yeah, I just like again, the sound design was really good. I love sound design. It just seems it's such an unforgiving environment. Nothing soft. Everything is a hard edge, on top of the fact that every room you go into could kill you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it would be like so you're saying you'd be up for the off-Broadway Cube?
I would see this off Broadway. Sure, why not? I bet it'd be great. You do some crazy things on Broadway. I mean, Broadway's pretty much dead during COVID, which is really sad.
It's super dead.
Oh, I feel so bad for those actors.
Yeah, it's just super dead.
What is usually a struggling Broadway's actor other source of income? Being a waiter or a waitress, primarily.
You're just dead. You're just double screwed.
I was talking to my mom about it the other day. I'm like, I feel so bad for these actors because it's so sad. Like both of their incomes are just taken away.
Yeah. 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 It sucks. Unfortunately.
It does. But back on topic, I would see an off-way Broadway version of Cube. I feel like
that would be cool. And you're right, because it's very, it's about the characters. You could just basically have one set and then just change the colors, kind of.
Exactly. It's the same as how they filmed it.
So that would be interesting. So does watching this movie make you interested in any of the sequel, prequel stuff that's also out there in the franchise?
Wait, this is a franchise? I feel like every time we talk and watch a movie, I find out that there's like a franchise related.
I know.
I had no idea. Now that I know, I might actually.
I believe there's at least 2 other movies.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious. What I like about this film is, it's very kind of contained.
Very much so.
it's its own thing. It's very contained. There's not this, there's a lot we can theorize about. We can kind of like go, okay, there's way more here potentially. But the premise is purposely kind of, not. They did world building in a way that's very smart, so that's like, okay, there's you can think, the audience can think about the answers to these questions, but we don't have the budget to go there.
We just don't have the budget for flashbacks or anything like that, because I feel like there was definitely ample opportunity if they had had more money, more time, to maybe do some flashbacks and give us some more little pieces as to like who these people really were in their real life. But at the same time, I'm kind of okay with not knowing. I kind of like the mystery and I like wondering, because I don't know, it's just kind of it's more fun that way. Sometimes when you give too much away, it's like, that's it.
Something that just came to my mind would be like doing something like Lost, like do a TV series. So they're stuck in the cube, and then you get these flashbacks. So imagine like this episode about Quentin, and he's like, yeah, I had 3 boys or blah, blah, blah. And you get like, you see the flashback and it's him like you said, as like a security guard or something. And he's doing whatever. And then the episode ends with him just killing his wife or something. And then like his son sees and then he kills him,
Yeah. Because like one of the things that makes Quentin kind of becomes a one-dimensional psychopath towards the end, because we don't get to see that. And I feel like if they could have explored that, we might have been able to feel not necessarily bad for him, but at least know the reasons why he's like this. Because I like knowing the motivations of villains. I don't like them just always being, I'm going to destroy the world. And it's so villain, man, twirling my little mustache. I like knowing their motivations, and they better be good.
Yeah. Or even, even something where we can see, because like even if you don't like a character, but you kind of either understand them or you kind of, it's kind of like some of the Game of Thrones kind of characters. Like they're so evil, you're like, okay, this dude is like on a whole nother level. But I kind of respect it. Like imagine seeing him in another prison situation and he's doing similar manipulative tactics, and you can tell he's really good at manipulating people.
Exactly.
Right. And he can just take people and then pin their personalities and control them and use them, and then at least we're like, okay, this is what this guy does.
Yeah.
He gets into a situation, he dominates it, and then he uses people to his own advantage, and then when they're no longer useful, he kills them.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. So you're a little interested in the Cube universe.
Yeah, I didn't know there was more. I like that idea. I hope they're good, but
yeah, yeah. I think they seemed okay from what I was seeing on IMDb and stuff. It's kind of hard. I feel like with these kind of movies, I'm trying to think of what this kind of reminds me of. It's a little bit like Evil Dead is another kind of movie that's very kind of cultish, very small budget. And ironically, he basically just redid the movie again. So sometimes that happens. Just do the movie again with a bigger budget.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Cool. So any last thoughts about this movie or anything that stuck out you want to talk about?
Not really. I just again I like the allegory that it could be about like heaven and hell, maybe like trying to escape hell or purgatory or something like that, because at the end of the movie Zan runs into a giant beam of light, basically. I think it might have just been the way it was being filmed with the light hitting the dark spots, but it almost looked like it was snowing around him too. But again, that might have just been like the way the film was reacting to the light. But I think it could definitely be a metaphor for a lot of different things, and I highly recommend it, and I think people should go and watch it. There's a reason it's a cult movie.
Yeah, totally. It's a very cult movie, but it's good. I like it. I mean, I was like very impressed by what they were able to accomplish with the budget they were able to. It's just a really smart kind of movie, well put together.
Yeah, they were able to do a lot with very little, and I appreciate films like that who can give me more with very little.
Yeah, it's just some panels.
Exactly. It's some panels and lighting and some fake blood. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, there's like two VFX shots. There's like the guy getting chopped up, and then that body when Ren gets splashed with acid.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's really
cool.
not that gory. It's more frightening of what the goriness, what the traps can cause is, and that gets your brain turning. You do all of the horror inside your own head, which I think is really interesting because there's two really grotesque, horrific things that really happen, and the rest is your own imagination freaking you out, which I think is, again, makes the movie very smart.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it's really well done for what. Like I said, I really kind of compare it to Saw. It kind of feels like that similar setup. Get people stuck, but then have all these kind of things, these different machinations that people have to go through.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, yeah, I think that that covers it. So, yeah, thanks a lot, everybody, for watching and listening. Really appreciate it. And take care. May the force be with you.
And live long and prosper.